Netflix just keeps destroying it with these new Marvel series. I swear to God. What's going on, guys? Welcome to my review of the new Netflix original Luke Cage. So this will be a spoiler-free review, and I'll only be covering what we've seen in the trailers for the most part. Then I'll probably touch up on some of the other minor details, but nothing major. So right off the bat, I want to say that Mike Colter as Luke Cage is a perfect casting. His personality is just, it's serious, then it has like a small mix of comedy, which I think is a really great balance, and specifically the way that they did it on this show. And I don't know what it is about Luke Cage's character, but the way that fans like myself connect and feel for this character is just incredibly unique. What I mean by that is that the connection you feel with Luke Cage is a lot more stronger and more prominent than with other characters like Daredevil or Jessica Jones, which I don't know how they pulled it off. I think it might be something to do with the fact that he doesn't wear a mask and he's basically just a guy with some superhuman abilities and he acts like a normal human being apart from that, and the fact that he's just a super down-to-earth guy overall, and it's just a really good person deep down inside. I don't know if that made sense or not. Jessica Jones did that too, to a certain extent, but it was on a completely different level. That's where I think automatically people are gonna like the Luke Cage character, just off his personality and just the character himself. Personally, if Luke Cage was a real person, I'd totally just salute that guy for all his services. Just mad respect for Luke Cage if he was a real person. As for the story, it focuses on Luke Cage's life after he gets his powers and how he doesn't want those powers because he wants to live a normal life. Along with that, Harlem is basically this piece of New York that criminals and innocent civilians are battling over to see who Harlem really belongs to. So the story's kind of like Daredevil, especially in certain episodes, but at the same time it's very different. So it's basically like that they used Daredevil story as a stepping stone and then built off of that to further Luke Cage's story, which I think was a really smart move and definitely played off in a really good way in the end. The next biggest thing that makes the series stand out from the other Marvel series is the music. Now, I'm not a big fan of hip-hop and R&B, but the way that they incorporated the music with the fight scenes and other important moments just fused so well. None of the songs felt out of place, and everything just felt appropriate, each song that they played. Also, on top of that, as an added bonus, I like how each episode is named after a certain song. I think that was a really cool and innovative thing for Marvel to do. It's really fitting, and the titles of the songs actually make sense with the episode. After music, I'd say the next biggest piece would be the main villain, Cornell Stokes, aka Cottonmouth. So the main villain is something incredibly unique that we haven't seen in any of the other Marvel Netflix series. The villain's kind of like Wilson Fisk in a way, just a little bit, especially when it comes to the way that he punishes people for their mistakes, and also in terms of their personality. Now, how about Stokes and Fisk's start with absolutely nothing when they're younger, and then they build themselves up to this really powerful level. Regardless of the similarities, Cottonmouth is still a unique villain on his own, specifically that he has his own way of doing things. He can manage and run his business low-key, basically not get the cops all over him due to his political connections, which you'll find out later on. I like how they incorporated that. In terms of brutality, that's in one of the first few episodes. You already see how brutal Cottonmouth can get. There's this one scene where this guy's reporting back to Cottonmouth about some event that went south, and Cottonmouth is pissed. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I just remember him just beating the hell out of the guy's face just repeatedly, and the sound effects were actually they felt more brutal than Daredevil's, and Daredevil's pretty hardcore. Just like the bone crushings and just like the sound of the hand just like squishing against the face. So all of that, it just felt really brutal. It felt more darker than Daredevil to a certain extent. But I'd still say in the end that Wilson Fisk is still far more brutal than Cottonmouth. He's definitely had more brutal moments than Cottonmouth has had. But he's not the only villain on the show. There's technically two other villains that come later, which are a lot more dangerous than Cottonmouth. And that's when shit really picks up. It's about in like the second half of the season. Another thing that these Netflix series like to focus on is the backstory of each of these characters. Luke Cage's backstory feels a lot like Daredevil's backstory, especially in terms of how it's organized, how they set apart some part of his backstory over the course of a couple episodes. I will say Luke Cage's backstory is really dark compared to Daredevil or Jessica Jones. Like, I mean really dark. Like, the man basically goes through hell and back, and you sit there like, holy shit, that's actually, like, I don't know if either of these other two Marvel characters could survive going through anything like that. It honestly makes Daredevil and Jessica Jones' backstory look like a damn cakewalk. You know, and Luke Cage definitely had it the worst for sure in terms of his backstory. Just absolutely brutal and dark. Marvel also does a really good job at telling the backstory of all the villains. Some are more edgier and help you understand the villain, while others are more personal and really make you feel for the shit that Luke Cage has to go through now because of the history that he's had with these people and what those people have become now. So that's definitely what makes Luke Cage stand out from the other series, is the way that the backstories are incorporated into it, specifically Luke Cage's and the villain stories. It works really well. Other additions to the show were the fight scenes. The fight scenes are a lot like Jessica Jones fight scenes in terms of how people are always being thrown around, and it's just a bunch of heavy hitters just punching each other really hard at a much slower pace, unlike Daredevil, which is really fast-paced fighting. Next thing that I liked would probably be the supporting characters. So I'll start with Claire, because she's had the most involvement in all of these Marvel series. You know, Rosario Dawson has basically been in every single one of these Marvel series now. You know, she had the biggest role in Daredevil, and then she had a small role in Jessica Jones, and now she has a much major role in Luke Cage. And she'll probably end up in Iron Fist at some point too, however they want to play that out. And then the next character would be Detective Misty, which is probably the most next likable supporting character. You know, she's basically like the Ben Urich of the show. And she does a really damn good job at that role. You know, she's always fighting for what's right in the system and always at the same time trying to help Luke. So she's kind of a mix between Brett Mahoney and Ben Urich, not just Ben Urich. You know, they both of those characters are mixed together, and you'd get Detective Misty. So next would be Pop. He's basically the father figure for Luke, and is basically what Luke's ideology and philosophies are based off of. You know, there's lots of times where Luke will quote something that Pop says, and that's what drives Luke forward to keep going and not giving up on anything. And I really like how they brought that into the show. I think that definitely works, and it really brings a sense of emotion to Luke Cage and all the other characters later on that become affected by that quote. But just overall, you know, the entire supporting cast is just amazing, and everyone's just such great actors. That's one thing that Marvel's always been really good at, is just casting the actors. Like, I don't know where they get some of these people from. Like, there's people you've never even heard of, and now they become just absolute legends because they get cast on these amazing shows. So Marvel just does a damn good job at casting people. As for things I really didn't like, the list is pretty small. It's only about one thing that really kind of bothered me, which were in some of the fight scenes. They felt kind of cheesy and I guess you could say low budget in a way for just few parts of some of the fights. You know, there's times when like Luke Cage is punching somebody, and then the way that they fly back just felt like something out of like a cheesy like 80s movie. I don't know if that's just me, but that kind of annoyed me a little bit, but it's something I can live with. But that's like the only flaw that I see in this series, is if they just made that a little bit more realistic, then I think it would have been a lot better. But in the end, guys, Luke Cage is a new take on the Marvel Netflix series, and it is a damn good approach to a new series. From the visually impressive intro to the final end credits, Luke Cage is just a phenomenal Netflix series, and I definitely can't wait to see what they do next for season 2, which is basically guaranteed to happen at this point. You know, I strongly recommend you go watch this series if you're a fan of Marvel series or a fan of just Netflix shows. You know, this is definitely going to be one of the highest rated Netflix shows. Overall, guys, I give Marvel's Luke Cage a 9.5 out of 10. I hope you guys enjoyed this spoiler-free review of Luke Cage. If you did, remember to smack that like button. It's always appreciated. If you have any comments or questions, leave them down below. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Also, if you're new here, feel free to subscribe to see more content like this. I'll see you guys next time.